Hello, Roger Royce back again. We now have Dr. Joe Jorgensen, who is the Libertarian candidate for President of the United States. Thank you, Dr. Jorgensen, for being with us here today.
Oh, so glad to be here. Thanks.
I wonder if you might just start by telling folks a little bit about who you are and about your candidacy.
Well, sure. The one question I've gotten is, when did you first become interested in politics? And my answer is, I'm still not interested in politics. I read Animal Farm as a child, and I realized that it is not the right way to have an elite few in Washington make rules for the rest of us. And the reason I'm running for president is government is too big, too bossy, too nosy, too intrusive. But the worst part is they usually end up hurting the very people they try to help.
Okay, thank you very much. So I've got a few questions, if you don't mind,
Sure.
that I'd like to ask you about. I guess the one big thing, if you saw the debate this week, you'll know the big thing that's on everybody's mind is the U.S. response to the COVID-19 pandemic. I guess my question for you is that if you had been president this past year, what would you have done differently about COVID-19?
The one big thing is I would have gotten rid of the FDA obstacle that kept people from being tested. You know, there were dozens of testing kits that were available that we could have taken to see who had the virus and who didn't. But the FDA and the CDC stopped all of them except originally 2 of them. And so I would have allowed everybody to be tested. And you know, if you look at South Korea, who got their first case around the same time that we got our first case, they were able to quickly contain the spread through extensive testing without even shutting down the economy. Meanwhile, we lose tens of millions of jobs. And Trump stood on the stage with Dr. Fauci and said, you know, if you don't have symptoms, don't get tested, even though at the time, conventional wisdom was that about over half the people with the virus didn't have any symptoms. So that's when you need testing, is when there are no symptoms, because otherwise you're going to spread it and not know it. And then also on the economic side, you know, this CARES Act, a lot of people are pretty happy that they got their $1,200 check. But the problem is, even though they were delayed a few days because Donald Trump wanted to sign them, that money was not coming from Donald Trump's back pocket. Excuse me. It's coming from us. So it's our money recycled through Washington. Now, unfortunately, it might not even be our money. It might be our kids' and our grandkids' money. But what a lot of people don't realize is that some of that money went to special interests, big corporations. And what's ironic is a lot of these big corporations were allowed to stay open during the pandemic. So I would have allowed people to keep their money and let them decide how to spend their money. And personally, I would have rather spent my money at some mom and pop store here in my small town than to send it off to some big corporation.
Yeah, you know, on that, you know, we're in a, because of these lockdowns, I would say we're in a full-blown recession now. It's worse in some places than others. Here in California, the lockdowns were early and they were massive and extensive. So now we're in a recession, and you've kind of alluded to or talked about some of the big federal bailout money that's been spent. What would you do now as president going forward to deal with our economic situation?
Well, first of all, we need to cut spending. You know, the best way to get out of a hole you're digging is to stop digging. And I think we need to look at in 3 different areas. First of all, we need strong borders. We need military to protect our borders. Is what I meant to say. We need strong military to protect our borders. And so what I would do is turn America into one giant Switzerland, armed and neutral, and get rid of all of our, bring home all of the troops around the world, because first of all, it's not keeping us safe. And secondly, it's costing us money. You know, we hear how great France is because they get 5-week vacations. Well, maybe we'd get 5-week vacations too if we weren't supporting everybody's military around the world. So that would cut $700 billion. Also, I would look at the Department of Education and start reducing that, because education is a local issue. It should be decided among parents, teachers, and students, not the federal government. and we've got at least $500, maybe as much as $1,500, but at least $500 per student going to the federal government. And every dollar that goes to the federal government, we only get 11 cents back. How about we get to keep our money, and then maybe teachers wouldn't have to be buying boxes of Kleenex. And then third, I would end the foreign aid to other countries. Now, of course, Americans should be willing to help out people around the world. Of course, they should voluntarily donate, but it shouldn't be the government doing it. And, you know, there's an old joke that the definition of foreign aid is taking money from poor taxpayers and getting it to rich dictators. So we need to end that. But we need to get jobs. We need to get the economy moving. And research has clearly shown that money in the hands of businesses create twice as many jobs as that same money in the hands of government. In order for government to create a job, they've got to get the money from somewhere. They're not the ones producing anything.
Okay, thank you. So, you know, on that theme, following up on that, I mean, our debt load now is going to be huge. It's probably the highest it's ever been as a percentage of GDP. And we heard the other presidential candidates going back and forth on tax plans, how they would change it, what it means. I'm starting to wonder if they even understand what their own tax proposals are. But let me ask you, where do you stand on taxes and spending?
Yeah, again, that our tax, you know, you said they don't even understand, you know, our tax code has become so complicated that only those who can afford private attorneys and tax accountants can even navigate the code. And that same IRS that taxes us to death probes into every personal financial decision we make. And I say that you know better how to spend your money than any politician or bureaucrat in Washington, so you should be able to spend it how you want. Therefore, I would eliminate the federal income tax and start putting money back into the hands of the people who earned it.
You know, another contentious issue this year, it seems every year, is healthcare and what the plan is for healthcare. And that's another big uncertainty as well. We don't know what's going to happen with the Affordable Care Act going forward. But as president, what would your plan be for healthcare?
It would be similar to the state of Indiana, which is also similar to the state or to Singapore. And here's what's frustrating. We keep hearing politicians say, you know what, the free market doesn't work, therefore we need single payer. Well, if there's one message I could get to every single American, it's that we haven't had a free market system in close to a century. And when I hear them say we need Medicare for all, what I'm hearing them say is we need VA hospital for all, and that monopolistic system isn't good enough for anybody. So I think the biggest problem with our healthcare is that the insurance isn't really insurance. So take your car insurance, for example, which is real insurance. It only pays for unexpected costs. It doesn't pay for gas, oil, car washes. So imagine if it did pay for gas. First of all, if you drove around, you would have absolutely no reason to drive around looking for the best price in gas. In fact, you might even go to the nicest gas station because guess what? They give you a free cup of coffee while you wait, and all you do is you pay your little $5 copay, and it's no skin off of your nose. Therefore, gas stations would have absolutely no reason to compete on price. And they would simply pass the costs along to the insurance companies. And then the insurance companies would simply raise our car insurance premium the following year. And this is what's going on in our healthcare system. There's no reason for patients to shop around for price. Therefore, there's no reason for providers to provide based on price. And so the insurance companies are not accountable to anybody, and we're the ones left footing the bill. So again, the state of Indiana, what they do is they put dollars actually into their people's pockets, and then they decide, you know, they shop around. And by the way, within a very short time, the number of generic drugs that were purchased went from 10% up to 90%. And the best part is they were happy to do it because they got to keep the savings. And that's the way it should be. If you shop around and go to shop around for the best price on groceries, cars, computers, whatever, you get to keep the savings. So I would like something like that. Now, we can't just yank the rug out and put everybody out in the free market, because there's not enough. The prices are basically too high from government bloat because government got into it. So what I would do is I would start this program for veterans and people on Medicare and Medicaid, let them shop around for prices and let them get the ball rolling. So in Singapore, which has a similar system, healthcare costs are about a third, and a doctor visit is only $10, which is less than our copay.
Wow. Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Jorgensen. Is there anything else that you'd like our viewers to know about your campaign? I know there's a lot of presidential candidate issues here. I've only hit a couple of them. Any other closing remarks?
Well, yes, would you mind if I talk about education for a minute? Because
Sure.
I don't think we've touched on that, have we?
No, we haven't. Go right ahead.
Okay. Well, because I think this is an excellent example of, first of all, the difference between the Democrats and Republicans and us, the libertarians, and also I think it explains why we're so polarized, why we're at war with each other. So let's say that you want to send your kid to a school with prayer, and let's say your neighbor doesn't. What you have to do now under their system is you have to battle it out. You have to each support your own candidate, send money, put out yard signs, go get your friends to vote. And then on election day, one of you is going to win and one of you is going to lose. And so there are going to be people who are unhappy with the one size fits all. The libertarian way of doing things would be you get to vote with your feet or vote with your dollars. So you have your money and your resources, and you get to decide which school. So if you want to send your kid to a school with prayer, you get to. If your neighbor doesn't, then your neighbor can send his to another school. And I liken it to, imagine if the government said, okay, we're all going to vote on whether we have, on whether we're all vegetarians or we all eat steak. And, imagine how polarized we would be then. And people might say, well, that's kind of preposterous, but look at all the personal decisions that the government is in charge of now. We all have to agree on vaccinations. We all have to agree on a healthcare system. We all have to agree on a retirement system. We all have to agree on very personal decisions like education. So we need to allow people to make their own choice. And now that people have seen just how out of control our system is, they have been coming to our campaign. We have about 75% of our volunteers are from outside the party, and it's been that way pretty much since day one. And our website, by the way, is joe20.com. That's JO20.com, because they're saying, you know what, these, and the media calls them the two old rich white guys. I say that's the least of the problems. I say the bigger problems is that both of them want to make decisions for you. Both of them want to spend your money. Neither one is doing anything about the crushing healthcare costs, and neither one is going to bring the troops home. So we need to bring the troops home. We need to go back to living in a world of peace. And so please check out my website, joe20.com, which, by the way, slowed to a halt after the presidential debate. Because everybody saw what their choices were and decided they weren't choices at all.
Oh, okay. Joe20.com. And I understand that you're actually going to be in California on Sunday, the 11th in Sacramento, I believe, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you can stop out and you can see Dr. Joe Jorgensen, candidate for president, Libertarian Party, in person in Sacramento. Well, thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time, and good luck to you.
Okay, thanks. Have a great day.